Is NARA SMITH really living a dream life, or is she just a victim of the patriarchy? Hi, I'm Paula Bermeo, clinical psychologist, and on this channel we talk about various topics and we analyze them from a psychological point of view, so if you're interested, please keep on watching. Before starting this video, I want to remind you that I give in-person and online therapy, so if you need a consultation, please feel free to reach me out on my social media, my phone number, my email, all of them will be listed down below on the description box as well. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, it will help me out a lot, and if there's a specific topic that you would like me to talk about, leave it in the comments down below or feel free to DM me on my Instagram. I'm always open to suggestions and I love interacting with you all. About a year ago, I made a video about tradwives in which I talked about some female influencers that were tagged as so by netizens, including NARA SMITH. In there, I mentioned that these women didn't actually deserve to be so hated and criticized because they took the voluntary decision to live the way they do and they just happened to share it online. But it seems as if the debate on if these women are actually free or hostages hasn't stopped and doesn't want to stop, thanks to some extremist viewpoints that argue that if you choose this more conservative way of living, you've been gaslighted and oppressed by misogynistic, toxic, sexist men. Because of this, many women, including NARA SMITH, have remained as a hot topic of conversation online. Now, I doubt you all don't know who NARA SMITH is, but if you really don't, she is a model and social media influencer who got viral last year for her videos in which you see her cooking everything from scratch to feed her family while wearing fancy outfits with her hair and makeup done while narrating what she does in a soft-spoken voice. She has also shared little glimpses of her life, living modeling to be a mom to 4 kids by now, I believe, staying at home to take care of them, navigating life with his partner Lucky Blue, who's also a model, to whom she got married in 2020, etc. We could say she's mostly a stay-at-home mom and wife, which has stirred up tons of speculation about her life. People have accused her husband of submitting and oppressing her, that he's the reason she quit modeling. These critics have actually assured all of those assumptions because Lucky and NARA happen to be Mormons, which many perceive as a sexist religion. Therefore, for them, it's basically a fact that she's a victim from a patriarchal ideology that has forced her to be at home, giving birth, cooking. Now, NARA hasn't necessarily addressed the backlash directly. She hasn't sat in front of a camera to tell the truth. However, she sort of tried to debunk those narratives through her content, giving a disclaimer that she actually loves cooking, assuring she's not a hardcore Mormon, showing Lucky doing some things in the kitchen, with both of them trying takeout food to assure NARA does rest and she's not being exploited, with him taking care of their children. Still, all of that hasn't stopped the hate, as nothing will ever be enough for the internet. They were saying this material is overproduced and acted out to cover up the fact that NARA is indeed oppressed and that they should stop romanticizing misogyny. A whole mess. But finally, on July 9th, 2025, NARA SMITH sat down with Jay Shetty to have a conversation in an episode for his podcast On Purpose, which I thought would be worth analyzing from psychological POV to finally answer the question many out there have. Is NARA an oppressed victim from traditional expectations, or is she just living her best life? I've done this format before when Kate Cassidy appeared on the same exact podcast and talked about Liam Payne. If you want to watch that analysis, I'll leave the link down below as well. But if you don't know what I do on these deep dives, well, I listen and watch the entire episode, I take notes, and I also take different aspects into account as body language, voice tone, gestures, what the interviewee says, coherence, to sort of build a profile of them, to comprehend their psyche. I take it as my first therapy interview, and then I answer to my basis question, which in this case is the one I already said, but I will repeat it. Is Nara an oppressed victim from traditional expectations, or is she just living her best life? And just as an FYI, I'll summarize the interview with the things that to me are the most relevant to make my conclusions, and I won't be putting any clips from the podcast in this video just to avoid getting a copyright claim, but I will leave the link down below of the full interview on the description box as well if you want to watch it. First, I want to start with how did NARA SMITH grow up? Nara has a South African mother and a German dad. She was born in Lesotho, South Africa, but her family moved to Frankfurt, Germany when she was 3 months old and was basically raised there. Her mom is a former model. Her dad is a musician who runs his own guitar string company now. So while she was growing up, along with her 2 younger siblings, her paternal grandma took care of them. That doesn't mean her parents were absent though, it just means her grandma has had a huge influence in her life. In the interview, Nara said her grandmother introduced her to plenty of activities she now loves, to play the piano, read, cooking, that she shaped the way she sees the world and always encouraged her to be authentic. Nara also narrated she had a strong bond with her grandma, hence why her passing when she was around 12 years old impacted her, but also inspired her to live a life that remains true to who she is, as her grandma always motivated her to do. Which I do gotta say is a functional way to grieve those significant figures in our lives. Again, for Nara, her grandma became a caregiver, an authority figure aside from her parents, so it makes sense she had an attachment to her, that she adopted similar habits, thoughts, behaviors, ideas, as again she was a significant part of her life. Therefore, losing her could have left a huge mark on her as well, which Nara could have decided to let it hurt her or take it as a booster to grow. She took the latter, of course, which shows that she was already mature and resilient from such a young age, because again, she lost her grandmother at 12 years old approximately. On the same page, she opened up a tiny bit about her family dynamics, not much as it seems her parents prefer to be more private, but it is still useful data. She mentioned they were very involved in her life as well, that her dad also loves cooking, enhancing the love she has for it thanks to grandma, that he would go to the market every single day, buy fresh ingredients and cook entire meals for the whole family. She added that her dad always encouraged her to be confident, to communicate directly, to be honest, to remain strong to what she believes as well, to her values, which goes hand in hand with the authenticity her grandma instilled in her. As a fun fact, Nara also mentioned she and her father are very similar personality-wise. In her own words, they are both a type A, which is characterized for being ambitious, competitive, dominant, direct, goal-oriented, traits that could explain why her dad motivated her to be independent and resilient. But type A's are also impatient, more prone to stress and being obsessive compulsive, very harsh on themselves, which could generate some issues down the line, which we'll see in a little bit. Anyway, with that said, it seems as if overall there wasn't any sort of imposition of traditional gender roles in her household. I mean, apparently her mom modeled freely until she wanted to. Her dad played music but also fed his entire family, and he encouraged Nara to be herself, which signals to healthy interactions that raised a sane young woman, not one with trauma that unconsciously looked for a toxic partner, but rather someone that was looking for the same peace she had in her house while growing up. About modeling. Nara mentioned she never had socials until Instagram came around, in which she posted some things for fun, but she was contacted by a modeling agency from abroad when she was 13 years old thanks to these posts. Jay asked her how her parents reacted when she was offered said opportunity, to which she responded that actually her parents were very supportive, that they truly trusted her, again thanks to her resilience and maturity, hence why she was able to sign said deal at only 14 years old and moved all the way from Germany to Los Angeles, the United States. She mentioned she never had insecurities until she entered into the modeling world, because in there they put a heavy emphasis on diets, body image, looks, every single little tiny thing we may not even think of, which made her hyper aware of her flaws for the first time in her entire life. Considering that she has a type A personality, it's just logical that the pressure from this industry could have gotten into her head, stressing her severely, as she might have gotten overly fixated on those traits higher ups were criticizing 24/7. Even more while being so young, just a teenager, and especially when she had been in a healthy environment before modeling. It must have been so shocking to experience that change so drastically during her developmental years. However, I perceive that Nara, as resilient as she is, has been able to heal from said criticism. She has used her type A personality to her advantage too, because she basically took that criticism at one point, kind of got competitive against it, and attempted to be the bigger person and have control over that toxicity. Why, you may ask? Because in this interview she said that over the years, the experience in the modeling industry served her to learn to never risk her health for the sake of fitting into a mold, and she meant it in every single aspect: physical, emotional, spiritual, every area of one's life, which once again shows an amazing emotional management and maturity. And aside from her own strengths, throughout the interview she made it clear her family is her support system, so maybe she did lean on her family during that time, finding comfort and reassurance, which could have boosted her self-esteem once again. About marriage and forming a family, Jay also asked Nara about her husband, their relationship, family life. Nara told Lucky slid into her DMs, but they are both bad texters, which for her was a bit annoying and made her think that she was not going to surpass anything with Lucky aside from messages, until Lucky promised to call her after a camping trip, and he actually did. Nara said in those calls they really got to know each other and clicked, as they both had the same values, beliefs, they both wanted to get married and have kids, had a similar approach regarding money management. Now, whether if these conversations happen on the phone or in person is actually key to have them, because to warranty a more functional relationship, you do need to have more things in common than differences, especially in those core aspects Nara mentioned. But these discussions also expose how open and willing to change and improve you both are, the ability from both parts to solve issues, to manage and regulate your emotions if you both are able to be reciprocal, which basically will mark the patterns of your dynamics as partners and even as parents if you do want to have children. But anyway, Nara and Lucky finally met at a fashion show after having FaceTime for months. The chemistry was still there, so they started officially dating. Nara said she did remind Lucky she was serious, a date to marry type of girl, and he was looking for stability as well, so I cannot say anything else than marriage for these two was just a given. Sure, they married like 4 months after they started dating, which for the average person could be rushed. Nonetheless, when we have two individuals that knew what they wanted, firm with their values and beliefs, it could work. I need to say that as a psychologist, I wouldn't recommend this for everyone though, as in the first 18 months of a relationship, you're still in the honeymoon stage, and after that is when you might start seeing things in your partner that you don't necessarily love. That's when differences appear the most, along with arguments, when toxic behaviors might manifest or become more noticeable, but that's also when your flexibility, your functionality, your ability to solve issues get tested. And if any of you is not improving, if one is actually improving and the other isn't, not even a bit, if you start getting stuck in circular patterns full of fights and difficulties, run. Of course, these problematic behaviors could appear earlier or later on. 18 months is just the average, so keep that in mind. Despite Nara and Lucky having a good marriage, we could take them as a mild example of how these difficulties could appear, as in the episode she said they did experience some issues at one point because of their different personalities. She told Jay that in the first year as a couple they were lacking in the communication area, as Nara, being a type A, didn't want to listen to what her husband had to say sometimes, that she wanted things fast and in her own way. She wouldn't take his feelings and needs into account, and Lucky didn't know how was she feeling because she didn't want to express it, as she thought she could solve her issues by herself, even when he wanted to be there for her, leaving no room for agreements basically. Hence why they had to go to couples therapy. In there, they learned to be assertive, to find a middle ground, to give and receive, and the most important thing, to see marriage as a collaboration between two people, which I'm glad she mentioned, because yes, marriage is a team in which you help each other to improve, in which you both fight to reach the same goals, in which you are able to support each other and fill in when the other person is lacking, because you know they will do the same for you, and they have actually done it. A union in which you'll find strategies to get to where you want by communicating, giving and taking, finding agreements. That's a healthy relationship, which fortunately Nara and Lucky seem to have, because they both left their prides aside, became aware of their weaknesses, accepted them, and decided to be better by addressing them. On the other hand, Jake asked Nara how does she feel about having become a mom at such a young age, because she and Lucky had their first kid together when she was 19 and Lucky was 22. Lucky has a first child from a previous public relationship, by the way, which Nara didn't seem to have a problem with. To which she answered that she couldn't be happier with the decision she took, as she always thought that if she decided to have kids one day, she preferred to have them young in order to be more relatable to their kids, to comprehend them more, and have the energy to run around and play with them. She added that her dad used to recommend her to be a young mom as well for the same exact reasons, but she also implied those comments never pressured her to be a young mother, but rather motivated her to live authentically as herself, as having kids early on has always been a desire of her, despite society shifting and encouraging women to don't have babies or to have them later in their lives. Jay also asked her if she has ever felt judged for getting married and having kids at the age she did, and Nara said that sort of, as people would question her for not being at the club or for not becoming a marine biologist as she once thought about, but she also said that in the end that's just the decision she took, and assured that it's okay if people don't choose the same path, because she acknowledges we are all individuals that move at our own paces depending on our own individual situations, which is just music to my ears, because she has that mindfulness, that capability of introspection, but also empathy to understand she was ready to be married and give birth to a child, but not everyone is, and she's able to respect that. She is aware that her situation is that. hers, and she's not promoting her lifestyle as the perfect formula for everyone to follow. And in this part of the interview, Jay said something to which NARA agreed that I need to highlight as well, as it is such a good advice. He said that in reality, there is no perfect timing to get married and become parents, to reach your dreams and be successful at what you love. It's all up to each person, each couple to decide, depending on how they have evolved. So instead of wondering if the time is right, it's better to ask, am I aware of the responsibilities these things will bring with them? Which is far more functional, because instead of putting so much pressure on yourself to do things as soon as possible to satisfy someone else, not only forming a family but anything, you are analyzing if you are able to do them at that moment, if you have the resources, money, mental sanity, energy, if you need help and who could give it to you, if it's better to give that chance to someone else, or if there is something that you need to improve before taking it, if your situation is the adequate or not, which simultaneously trains your ability to hold yourself accountable so you won't damage yourself by getting involved in situations you don't desire, you're not ready to face yet, you don't have the maturity or stability to assume them, that won't add to your life, and you could even avoid harming others as innocent kids, a partner. Self-awareness is the most selfish but selfless thing we have available, seriously. But now that NARA talked about her lifestyle, Jay asked her if there are any gender roles in her home, aka if she's a tradwife or not. And she finally debunked the internet narratives about her and her husband. NARA mentioned that even though netizens have tagged her as a tradwife, she really isn't, as both NARA and Lucky collab with each other in pro of their family. She mentioned that Lucky takes as much care of their children as her, that she stays with them while Lucky travels for work, but he does the same now that NARA has come back to modeling. She cooks because she's better at it, but Lucky cleans, and sometimes he does things he actually can do, as a steak or baking. That in general, tasks are a 50-50, which aligns with the mantra they've learned. Marriage is a collab of two. She also said that she acknowledges internet users have stereotyped her as a tradwife because she's a woman that cooks for her family in a dress and speaks softly, but that's far from the truth. First, because as mentioned, both NARA and Lucky share responsibilities in the household. Then she cooks because she wants to, because she loves to, because she prioritizes her and her family's health. Little parenthesis here, NARA has eczema and lupus, which forces her to eat mostly unprocessed stuff, so it makes sense she prefers to cook herself to not trigger reactions in her body, but also to reduce the chances of her kids suffering from those illnesses, as they could have been passed through genetics, and a declining diet could increase the probabilities of those pathologies appearing over time. Because she's actually working as a content creator and generating income by doing what she loves, cooking and nurturing her loved ones, because she's not forbidden from showing herself to the world. Instead, she herself took the decision to put herself out there for the world to see, and she created an entire internet persona to whom she decided to style in a certain way, to give certain characteristics based on what she enjoys, food, and fashion. She's been such a girl boss, so much so that she has built a social media empire by herself, with her cell phone and her tripod, and she has also been able to keep it up and even expand her opportunities because she has a supportive husband cheering her up and willing to fill in for her when she's packed with work, just as she has done for him. Reciprocity is something this couple have and has allowed them both to shine. And regarding her body language, I didn't pack anything sus. She generally maintained a neutral face and body, and even voice tone. She smiled and laughed when Jay said something funny or relatable to her. She moved her hands very often, yes, but in her context, I don't take it as her being desperate, defensive, or anything like that. Instead, in this case, her hands most likely came from her being really passionate about what she does, which makes sense as she seems to have a strong bond with her family, to really have strong core values and beliefs. She seems to really stand by living authentically and at one's own pace, which again, it's shown in her gestures, but also in the glimpses of her life we can actually see. So yes, there is coherence between her words and actions that could translate into her enthusiasm when talking about her life in general. So with that said, I can conclude that NARA Smith is not an oppressed tradwife. She's just a woman that happened to love the idea of doing certain things sooner than other people due to her maturity, her resilience, and goals in life. She's someone that wanted to form a family because she grew up in a healthy and happy one herself. She is a person that enjoys being in the kitchen because she grew up with significant figures in her life, grandma and dad, loving to cook as well, and that's just a tradition they passed down to her and most likely brings her good memories and at the same time guarantees her health and the health of her home. She's a human being that was fortunate enough to find someone with the same life project as her, but also with the same self-awareness to identify and accept their shortcomings, and with the same will to be better and work together to grow, which creates a healthy environment for a couple to succeed, for kids to grow up optimally, but also for her and Lucky to remain physically, spiritually, and emotionally healthy as individuals, which is the basis for functionality. Because to be collectively happy, you first have to be individually happy. You have to heal and close those personal wounds first to make sure you will find people that will add up to your life. You'll also add up to theirs, and you'll have a bigger chance to flourish together, as Lucky and NARA Smith have most likely done. Yes, Lucky took her last name as well. Definitely not a sexist man. Is there something you learned from this video or something that you would like to add to the conversation? Leave it on the comments down below. Also, don't forget to like and share with someone that may find this useful, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you never miss out on more interesting psychology content. Thanks for watching.